Welcome back, everyone. Road Less Traveled podcast. Wow, it's been an insane couple weeks here in the world that we live in. We've got the COVID-19 coronavirus now even infecting some of our friends. Our good friend Lee Carney from Tampa, who is the CEO of the company we met through at an event, has now contracted the virus. So this thing's hitting pretty close to home. But again, we are back smiling and overcoming obstacles here on the Road Less Traveled podcast. How you guys doing? Sky and Kristen in the mix?
Hanging in there.
She's hanging in there.
A rough week, but we're hanging in.
We're doing pretty well. I could always do well when I'm sitting next to this. This. So I always am blessed to be around such a gorgeous person right now.
That is a great way to make it work right there. You're learning very well, Sky. Very good execution there. So as we've discussed, this thing, the coronavirus, which we have covered on here before, is becoming more and more and more impactful. I sound like a Texan.
A little hillbilly on us.
Right, I had a little hiccup there. It's becoming impactful not only in the fact that we've had to respond as a nation, as a globe of governments, a planetary, whatever you want to call it, response to this whole thing, which has now been categorized as a global pandemic. So all nations across the world are being affected by this. People are contracting this. It can be very serious, especially with people with underlying conditions. It doesn't matter what your age is. You can get it. It is serious in some cases. And so we're trying to control this thing, which means we're shutting down cities, shutting down businesses. So when you're shutting down cities and you're shutting down businesses to control one thing, we were talking about this before. It's like the oldest science lesson in the world. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when we shut down businesses and we shut down all these cities, well, what is the reaction to that action? Well, people aren't able to go to work. When people aren't able to go to work, they're not able to make money. When people aren't able to go to work and make money, they can't pay their health insurance. They can't pay their rent. They can't put diapers on their kids. They can't get toilet paper. So now we're focused on this global pandemic that is a threat. We've established that there's risks to getting this virus. And now what we're doing over here is we're literally tanking the United States economy.
Absolutely. And
there is no in between. This is exactly what's happening. Cut and dry. That is what is happening. 3 million people filed for unemployment last week alone. So anyway, go ahead, Kristen, because I love to babble.
No, I was just going to say, it's one thing that we started out with the pandemic, this fear that is going around, I step out of my door, the chances of me getting it, and that chance is growing every day. We're seeing every day 17,000, 20,000 new cases just in the US. Port New York City is just completely overwhelmed, and it's, expanding everywhere, and so we started out with just that fear, that, oh my God, what can happen to me? What can happen to my loved ones? And, as it's spreading, it's getting closer and closer to home. I had a scare with one of my family members yesterday that they were going to be getting tested, possibly, but they ended up just saying, oh, you got bronchitis. So we're hoping, fingers crossed, that is all that it is. But, so you start with those things. And then over the last week or two, people are starting to really get hit with the financial. People are starting to get hit with the, oh, crap, how am I going to pay this bill? Oh, crap, how am I going to, feed my family? And so now not only is there that fear of what's happening in the world because of this virus, now it's this, how am I going to take care of my family? How am I going to make sure I don't lose my house? How am I going to make sure that, I'm able to go day by day? So then you've got that on top of everything. So, there's just, you've got wages being cut across, all around, healthcare is included. You've got hours being cut everywhere because You don't want too many people in one place at one time. You don't want, or you aren't able to even be going into your job because they can't keep you open. And so there's all these extra things that are happening. So it's really, I think that we started with that pandemic, and now it's the fear of the financial and our families and how everything along those lines is going to be affected. I know that, it's been a rough week for me. My hours are starting to get cut, and I work in the healthcare. It's just, doctors don't want to be putting people in the homes as much. Families aren't wanting people to come into their homes. I go home to home, and, I'm taking every precaution possible, but, people don't, they don't know where I've been through. They don't, they just have to go off of my word, and I have to go off of each person and each family member that I run into in their word, when I'm asking them, have you been in contact with anybody with the virus? Have you been in contact with anybody with respiratory issues? Do you yourself have a fever, sore throat, or a cough? I have to trust these people that they're being honest with me. And so people aren't wanting that carried through. But so I think at this point, even for me, like, it's gotten to a point where it's not just, it's so many different components, and it's mental health now too. It's isolation, it's fear, it's, struggling. It's not, not knowing when this is going to be better. And I think that, that's, I know this week hit me hard, and I had a couple of days where I broke down.
I'll add a small little realist piece to this. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that on this show, I'm probably the big realist of everything. So I really don't have a filter, but I try to cut out the cursing. But as far as facts and stuff go, I'm pretty good with it. As far as like the pandemic that's making people go crazy, I don't know if it's some people are just Looney Tunes all the time, or if this is something that they're doing to get jokes or whatnot. But you've got people going out when they're told to stay home, and they're going out and they're going to convenience stores and they're licking the handles of things. They're literally trying to play jokes. They're running.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and they're running around on the streets like, I have coronavirus, and don't come near me. But then they get real close to people and like, what are you going to do about it? And blah, blah, blah and stuff. And again, I don't know if there's something wrong with those people in general, or if this is just making them even more loony, whatever the case is. But that is a huge problem that seems to be ramping up, because every day you hear about it more and more and more, whether it's to get attention, because with the coronavirus keeping us inside, our society now is all about, how do I get attention? How do I get engagement with stuff? People are Facebook Living this stuff. They're doing it with stories with Instagram and stuff like that. Right. They're running out of ideas being at home. So how can I become something now? Oh, I'm going to screw around with people, even though I might not have it, but I'm going to try to create a story and so forth. And you don't know if these people are kidding or if they really have it or not. So that's kind of where we're headed with everything. And it's a sad state of affairs, to be honest with you.
Well, and I think that, at some point we've got to look at, and this is what we've been talking about, is what are you building in life? What are you building in life? Our goal, and we will achieve it, is to release a coffee brand and a merchandise brand, and it's going to be awesome. And so that means that we've got to kind of keep the dream alive by being consistent and continually sticking to our guns, and to continue, getting the word out about what we want to do. And, it's really not a secret that, I've been spreading the word to some top name entrepreneurs that know a lot of people that could potentially help us. Does that mean that that's magically going to work? Absolutely not. But hey, listen, who matters. So sitting around the same old town, the same old people, the same old mindset, worrying and being scared. And I mean, dude, that does not produce big results. I mean, this is not, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. And doubting every single action that you take to go out and produce big doesn't work either. You've got to be confident, clear, and fearless to get the big results in life. And it's just the name of the game. I was on this guy, Brad Lee. We were talking about Brad. If you don't follow Brad, follow him. He's amazing. He's online, and he runs the biggest virtual training company on the planet. Damon John, Tony Robbins. I mean, we could go on and on and on. Tim Grover, Michael Jordan's personal trainer, and Kobe Bryant's personal trainer, uses his virtual training studios and system to put their content out. And so, these are the kinds of people we want to be around. So it was pretty cool. I was on his podcast. So while we're starting this podcast movement from the ground up, it's like we're already in touch with people that are the best in the area that we're in. And we're already kind of crossing that line of, hey, we're just getting started. Check this out. What do you think? And it's a positive message we're putting out. It's we're battling through the tough times in a positive way. And we're addressing what we're really dealing with. And being a startup and a startup message, we've talked about this too, is that the message and the messenger are just as important as the business concept. Because if you're an expert salesperson, you can almost sell anything if the business concept's good enough. But do I really want to work with this messenger or this message? Does it really fit, what I want to put out? And so if you're able to break that barrier, then it makes life a whole lot easier in the long term. And that's why these problems that we're experiencing in the short term right now are very trying, because we have a long-term vision. We have incredible connections. We know phenomenal people that can help us. And it's just, we got to weather the storm. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to explain these types of things, right, to the world, that this is our big goal with this show and with this coffee brand and with this merch brand. And I mean, I can see the mugs now on people's desks getting snapped, chatted, and Instagrammed. I mean, we've got an incredible concept here, and we're great people, and it will work. But right now, it's hard, and quitting isn't going to make it easier. Quitting is a guarantee that you won't get the result because you gave up, right? So anybody who's watching it and anybody who's watching us, oh, well, where'd you guys go for 10 weeks? Oh, well, we quit. Is that really somebody that anyone wants to invest in? Probably not. So while it hurts and you got to take the hits, it's the same thing with this pandemic. Well, we can't stop now. We got to contain it. And we got to help Americans. So now we've got this huge stimulus package, right? We want everybody to kind of balance out. We want all these things to balance out. We want everybody's business to work. We don't want anybody to fail. I mean, dude, it is a crazy time right now. I've never seen anything like it. And we're right in the middle of it,
I think the other thing that we're seeing through this too is that really no job is safe. And I think we talked a little bit about this before, was just, I mean, I'm in healthcare, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and my hours are getting cut, and I honestly, part of the reason that, I went into my job, into my field, because I love helping people, but I also, I was like, there's stability there. Well, guess what? Not so much, and so I think that kind of shows us that, everything's risky. It doesn't take, it's not just these, trying to start your own company. You're not guaranteed anything.
We were having this conversation yesterday, kind of going off of that, with the stability of things, where if you get a job, just over broke, that type of crap, you think you might have it good, you're going to get a salary, you might get some benefits and blah, blah, blah and stuff. But having something like this, where you're in no control of what it is that you can either make or how long you can be on payroll and so forth, all that can be taken away from you in just an instant. So for me, kind of going off of why I wanted to start my own stuff, number one, I don't know if I've talked about it enough, but maybe I should start. The coffee company itself, it's not just a coffee company. It's something that I want to get big enough to where I'm able to effectively help people. Like, the message in the underlying cause is also about helping people. The other thing that I'm involved with, as far as like First Form, their big thing is they're not selling supplements, they're helping people. The real estate thing I'm under, it's not that I'm trying to buy somebody's house to make a big profit. Is that part of it? It can be, but then some other houses that you get, you might only make a profit of $100, to be honest with you. But what are you doing? You're solving somebody's problem. You're helping people. So when people ask me what I do, like, what's your job? First off, I say I don't have a job. My thing that I do, what I do is I help people. How do I help people? I do such and such and such and such. And when I explain everything that I do, a lot of times I get from people, man, you're doing way too much. And my counter to that is, even sometimes she'll even come over and say, hey, your mind is over here. Maybe it should be over here. I think you might be taking too much on. And bless her for caring about me and so forth. But to other people, I say, I don't think I'm doing nearly enough. Like, I want to do even more to help people. So back to the original point of the coffee and so forth, the message that we have is, we want to take all the outside people that want to start businesses, that want to make a difference in the world like us, and we want to be the fuel, quote unquote, that they start with every morning, or they need that pick me up in the afternoon and so forth. But in the end, entrepreneurs are doing something to help people. And you guys are, if you're an entrepreneur listening to this, you might already understand it. But if you're wanting to become one and you're a little bit scared, the one thing that basically took me away from my job, quote unquote, again, was I was tired of being in the fear of somebody could literally fire me in an instant, even for not doing something that was out of my control, or they're doing layoffs right now, or they don't need me, or they're going in a different direction and so forth. Like, I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for my family. I want to dictate what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. Basically, the company's either going to live or it's going to die with what I'm doing. Money is going to come whether I'm doing something or I'm not. But as far as the making the money is concerned, we talk about Andy Frisella on here a lot. He's the owner of First Form. He didn't take a paycheck in his company for about 10 years. So, but his goal was to help people. And now he's been in business for almost 20 years and he's close to being a billionaire, for God's sake. And it was all on the concept of helping people. So if you're out there right now and you don't have a job, or you're looking for a job, I said this, I think 2 podcasts ago, if you are looking to do something, now would be a great time to do it. But something that everybody should be incorporated to do is to try to figure out a way to help people and help them through some way, some gleam of hope, especially when there's something like this. Because this could last longer than people expect. This could also be something that we stop and then it happens again. So not worrying too much about the now, have an idea in your head, what can I do in the future to prevent something like this, as far as my family is concerned, or my financial future, or how I want to help everybody. Kind of bring all that stuff together, write it down, take some small action, because people who have ideas and they don't take any action, nobody knows about them, like, at all. So I've had this idea, honestly, for a coffee business, or the coffee to help people. I've had this for about 2 years, honestly. Like, I have thought about it, I've doodled about it, and I was just like, oh, this would be really cool and stuff, but I was busy doing other things and blah, blah, blah. And last year, I kind of just made the decision, I'm tired of just seeing this stuff on paper. I'm tired of going to Starbucks and it's a $6 for normal coffee and it's not even that good. I mean, I'll be the one to say it. It's not that good. I hate Starbucks coffee, the taste of it. I really do. So that might get me in trouble, but at this point, I really don't care.
No, I like it. I'll stand behind it.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, the aspect of having the dream, having the willingness to do it, it just takes a snap of a finger and just basically to do it. Now, did I go into it pretty hard? Yep. Am I going to fail pretty hard if I don't get my crap together? Yeah, probably. But am I going to let that happen? No. I have other things that I'm doing as well to kind of funnel everything together. So it's not just going to be the Outsider Nation coffee brand is not just going to be coffee. And as we get closer to launch and we unveil everything, people will start to see the big message that comes and why it's going to be bigger and better than other coffee brands that are out there, because there's an actual message. If you look, again, we talked about this before, if you look at a couple brands, there's very few that have a actual solid message. Most of it is just, oh, hey, we've got coffee. You know, here, this is the best tasting coffee. Well, what the hell does that do? You know, I can go to a cafe that I know that we have right down here by the street. They have great coffee. There's no message behind it, but do I like the taste? Absolutely. So imagine if they had that good tasting coffee and they had a solid message behind it, they could impact so much more people, get a movement going and so forth. And on top of that, they have great tasting coffee. I've tasted our coffee. Like I had to have final approval of what I want sent out, and it's great. Like it is good. Kristen can back me up on it. It is very, very good coffee.
We swear we're going to have coffee at some point.
We really do. And no, I promise you, when my distributors are ready and we're ready to make that commitment to bring it to the masses, we will. But it's very good coffee, and I feel that our message is going to be better than anybody else's message, and that's going to create a community, a following that supports everything that we stand for. It's not just the drinking of the coffee or so forth. It's what we're actually doing. So if we can bring people together, people that want to help other people, and we can extend that out to other places, I feel that's kind of the big reason that you should consider doing something for yourself and not worry about letting somebody else dictate your future and so forth. But that's how I feel about it.
Well, yeah, and I think that, and I've said this before on my personal podcast, is, I mean, you know, there's a million analogies. I could go through all the guru analogies. I know all the top gurus. You know, don't fold while you're still unfolding. Tim Story, you know, the setback is the setup for the comeback. That's another Tim Story line. You know, Brad Lee was talking about, hey, you know, if you learn how to help other people, and you can use your ability to help other people to build a business around that, then you'll be way more successful, you know, mentally and, you know, financially than you ever could just, you know, doing a job. There is a limit on how many hours you can put in at a job and how much money you could. I mean, we could literally put a graph on the screen of X amount of, you know, dollars per hour, and this is what you're going to make every month. And there's nothing wrong with jobs, but we're building a business here, and building a message and building a concept that some people could potentially align with. And so we want to make sure people understand that, you know, when you build something like this, there is no limit. There is no ceiling. There is no, you know, hourly limit to what we could produce or put out into the world. I mean, there could be some pandemic in 15 years, and the Outsider Nation coffee is the thing that's, you know, leading the charge to help people, you know. In one defense of Starbucks, because we aren't total haters here, they did give like $1 coffees or free coffees or something to healthcare workers or something.
Yeah, free coffees, I believe.
There we go. Yep.
So there's a silver lining.
That's
Now, is the coffee what Sky likes? Maybe not. Okay. But, you know, I thought that was a generous move. If we give up and we say, oh, this isn't worth it, and things are so hard, and there's a pandemic, and we need to lock our doors and hide in the closet, dude, there's going to be something in 3 months that hits that's hard too. There's going to be something in 6 months that hits your life personally that's hard too. There's always something. Always. So the more that you tap out, the more that you say, oh, I'm going to let this thing stop me, the easier it gets to be content with a lower quality result than what you're capable of.
That's exactly what I was going to actually follow up with. And you kind of beat me to the punch, but I don't want anybody to get me wrong on here. If you have a job, you know, again, just over broke in my opinion, but if you have a job that you enjoy and it settles, you know that this is what you like to do. I'm only going to settle for, making $12 an hour. When I'm done, I punch my clock, I go home, I see my kids, I have a beer, whatever the case is. If that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're built for that, that's fine. At least you're doing something. But I feel there's too many people out there that want more than that. They're actually built for that, but they get in their own way. There's that little voice in our head that says, you're not good enough, you can't do this. And then we have the outside forces that come in, whether it be family or friends from high school that are, that go to the strip club still every day and blah, blah, blah and stuff, that just tell you like, hey, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you, man? Like, seriously, you're not our boy anymore. Like, you need to hang out with us and all this other crap and so forth. And there's just all that stuff that pulls you down. But again, now that you're in isolation or you don't have your job or you're just sitting around thinking, like, if you've ever had a time to think to yourself, man, I'm tired of what I'm doing. I'm tired of being somebody else's puppet, or I'm tired of just not achieving so much more. Now is the perfect time to get out there and actually express something. And it could literally just be writing it down on a piece of paper. Like, that is something I literally did. One day I wrote down on a piece of paper, coffee company, underlining that, and then it says helping people. Like, that's entirely different of coffee. Just, again, coffee on the shelves, coffee.
Right. And let's brand it well and sell as much as we possibly can.
Exactly. That is not what I want to do. Will we make money with it? Yeah, hopefully we do, and hopefully it turns into a very big thing. But it's the movement that's going to get us there. So again, if you have that desire right now is a perfect time to get out a piece of paper and just write it down. And
write it down. That's funny. Yeah, we were talking about Jonathan Frost. He's an accountant that I know, real successful guy, and he has a quote that's kind of gotten pretty viral on Instagram stories, that to accomplish anything, you must write down something. To accomplish anything, you must write down something. You can't write nothing down and do nothing and take no action and accomplish anything. And it's like, I see more and more people say, oh, do less. Like you were saying, people have always said that to me. Oh, well, you're doing all this and you're doing all that and you're making all these songs and you're doing all this and you're making all these videos and stuff. But it's like, how's that going to pay off for you? Well, 4 years ago, it might have looked a little bit crazy, but it wasn't so crazy when I was, singing and jumping around and spinning around on stage in front of 10,000 people at the biggest business event on the frickin' planet. It wasn't so funny then. Then it was, the narrative changes too. So it's like, oh, well, what you're doing isn't going to work and it's stupid. And then it changes to, oh, well, how are you going to use that to make a bunch of money? And then it goes to, oh, well, now all these freaking people and you're doing all this and all that. Well, what's next? What's next for you? It's like, what's next? You're the same people that were commenting saying the thing was silly a few years ago. Now you're asking me what's next? So it's like, if it's so silly, why are you even watching it? That's a solid question. If it's so silly and it's never going to work, then why even consume it? And so you've got to understand that it is a lonely road. Success, greatness, all this stuff that we preach about, it's a lonely road. There's going to be some people that love us, and there's going to be some people that maybe don't love us. But the thing is that we love you. We want you to be successful. And the good thing about today is that people are allowed, and people, because of the internet, have the power to draw the lines in the sand on what they want and what they don't want, who they want to be around and who they don't want to be around, who they're going to work with and take advice from and who they're going to not work with and not take advice from. It doesn't mean that you don't love someone, that you don't support someone. Or when Sky says, I don't want to work a job, doesn't mean working a job is bad. Kristen works a job. Doesn't make him smart and her dumb, or her smart and him dumb, or it cause any kind of friction. It's a balance in anything in life, and so I think it's important to remember that, we are the outsider nation. We're not the we're for everybody nation. So we understand that going in, that we are going to talk about stuff that maybe other people wouldn't talk about. And while he might not like the taste of this person's coffee, it doesn't mean that what they did for healthcare workers that we don't appreciate that. Sure as hell appreciate that. Smooth move. That's a wonderful thing to do. But at the same time, the reality of this world and the reality of what we're seeing now with this current pandemic is that, there is a survival game happening right now. And a lot of the people that, I know that have heavily invested into this or heavily invested into that, and I've even mentioned it a couple times, hey, calm down, with bashing everybody that didn't invest or that doesn't have education on this or that does work 4 jobs to feed the family, because the education is now there. You just got to know the right people and got to be able to access it. Sometimes knowing and seeing is believing. So you can't have someone believe and know and get confident about something that they've never seen. So, the old school way of, just do this and do that, or go to this institution and you'll be successful. Those days are crumbling before our very eyes because we are seeing with what's happening in reality, because reality always, as Sky, our realist here, our professional realist, will tell you, reality can be disturbing sometimes. And the reality of the situation is there is no safety with anything that's happening right now, with your finances, with leaving the house to get toilet paper. I went to 5 stores this morning to find toilet paper for my kids this morning. It was weird. It was weird. Normally I just walk out, grab it. I mean, we use Walmart delivery now. We're so spoiled, like a bunch of millennials. And I am a millennial, so I can say millennial. Technically, year-wise, I am a millennial. So, yeah. We do this Walmart delivery. It's like, what, $6 or $7 a month. They don't have anything on Walmart delivery. So we're driving all over today looking for toilet paper. I mean, this is insane. So we've got to understand that things are changing. Things are already changed. Things are different, and they're not going to go back to how they were either. We're not going to go backwards. We are an ever evolving society and a country. America always wins. I'm always pro-America. But what we've got to understand is that this situation, pandemic, is changing the way everything works. I've got event companies that I've done events for in the past that are like, we're never doing a live event again. Everything we do now is digital. Everything we do now is webinars, podcasts, digital, everything. I've been saying this for years. That's why we started this show. Before any of this happened, I'm like, we got to be online. We got to put our message out there clear. We got to get around the right people. We got to get on other big podcasts and get those people to come to us. And that's exactly what we're doing. And a lot of other coffee companies or brands aren't doing that, and we are. So it might come off as weird. Why are you guys doing this? Why are you talking on the internet every week? Well, it's because we are communicating clearly what we want. We are declaring it, and we're actively going after it. Because we can just, all hide in the closet, and be afraid. That isn't going to get us what we want. That isn't going to get you, a cool mug in the morning that says, you're a boss. We talked about all these different female and male coffee cups and all this kind of stuff, Boss Babe and, Super Mom and all this kind of stuff that I think when everyone sees that stuff, it'll be a little bit more understandable. But right now it's us talking about making that dream happen. And so I'm sure it's confusing a little bit, unless you're somebody like, we've talked about, like Brad, who can look at this and be like, oh, dude, those guys, they want it bad. Check this out. That's the guy we want rooting for us. That guy could swoop in with the Millennium Falcon of business and save the day for us. And then we're huge. those are the people we've already surrounded ourselves with. So the separation, the 6 degrees of separation theory or whatever is true. Who you surround yourself with, take your advice from, and actively apply knowledge from will be the difference maker down the road for you.
Something that says, I hear it with a lot of other big businesses, like big wigs and stuff like that. But Andy's a big person that says this, and it really sticks with me, is when you go into business or kind of anything in general, like if you have an opinion about something or you're trying to promote something or so forth, 50% of the people, they're going to understand and they're going to like you. No matter what it is that you say, they're going to understand and they're going to like you. Then you're going to have 50% that want nothing to do with you, think you're stupid, like all of that stuff. So my advice to kind of go off of that ratio or so forth is the people who do like you, who do understand, figure out ways to try to make their lives better, try to solve their problems better, because eventually it's going to take a long time. But eventually the people who are over on the other side of it, the 50% that don't like you, one of two things will happen. They're either never going to like you just because of the way you look, the way you talk, they think you're stupid, or some of them might start to migrate over to the other side slowly because they see the good that you're doing and how happy and how you've affected the lives of the 50% that really do enjoy what it is that you do, the services that you do provide, and how well you help them. And that's kind of just the thing. If you worry about only those 50% that really do care about your message and what you're doing, the other people that are outside of it, they will start to follow eventually. And that's great. You can accept them with open arms. That's totally fine. But if they're just going to sit over in the corner, it doesn't really matter, because you want to have that core group of people in that 50% that will spread the message for you. You don't have to do nearly as work. If you spend all your time trying to get people that don't like you for whatever reason to like you, all you're going to do is waste time. So just make sure you put your energy towards the right half of the people that actually do give a crap about you.
Totally agree. And I think that's something another friend of mine mentions, Gary Vaynerchuk, consistently, is to, double down on your strengths. Double down on your strengths, go out there, do what you're good at. And that goes for anything, man. I mean, I get it. I get that there's people who work at I have a friend, she works at a school. She's a high school teacher. She's a mom too. So she's a high school teacher and a mom. And then she works at a restaurant at night and on the weekends. And she's also the cheerleader coach at that high school as well. So the high school's closed down. So I don't know. I'm sure somehow she makes some kind of payment from the high school. I don't know how it works. But the high school's closed down so that her kid's school is shut down and the restaurant is shut down. And her husband, who's another friend of mine, works at the restaurant. And he's the manager at the restaurant. And so he is in a situation where he's got to cut hours because they're not bartenders and servers and bussers and all these people. They're just doing carry out and delivery. And so both of them are in this balancing act of, what the heck are we going to do here? So this whole thing is an upside down scenario for a lot of people. And so, our message is still the same, is that you've got to put your foot on the gas, because hitting the brakes right now is the wrong move. You got to put your foot on the gas and you got to accelerate and get to the end of the tunnel, because this will eventually, I don't know if the word is blow over, but this will eventually subside, right? And people will go back to their lives and stuff. And the people who had their gas pedal down are going to be way ahead of the people that, sat around and watched the entire Iron Man series. Now, I have watched an excessive amount of Marvel movies over the past 2 weeks, but only at night when we're feeding the kids and stuff, because I can't watch Bubble Guppies anymore. Okay, I cannot do it. Parents out there, do you feel me? So, I had to change up the programming. We're watching Captain America. My kid's like, Captain Amerigo. I don't like Captain Amerigo. But listen, this is hard for everybody. And I mean, I work from home anyway, and it's hard. So you just got to keep your head on straight, be creative, be innovative. The innovators are the ones who, and as we've even seen through this, Elon Musk mass producing ventilators. Andy Frisella offered $100,000 to Blues employees that are put out at the arena or the Kiel Center or the Scottrade Center, whatever they call it now in St. Louis. Mark Cuban from the Dallas Mavericks CEO, another Shark Tank guy that Brad Lee clients are in touch with. That guy is paying the salary of all the arena workers in Dallas that work for the basketball team, even though they're not putting in their hours. He wants to make sure they're paid. There's so many people that are doing incredibly great things, and they're all business owners and entrepreneurs. Outside of obviously our healthcare workers and our parents and all these people. My point is we're talking about business and entrepreneurs generally on the show. So look at all these innovators that are able to do all these amazing things to what you said, help people because they were willing to take the hits and to take the risk and to put it all on the line, when people were like, hey, you're crazy. I'm sure people were like, oh, Mr. Cuban, why do you want to own a basketball team? That won't work. When Damon John was selling shirts, FUBU shirts on the side of the road, and I don't know where he's from. I think it's Brooklyn. You guys can hold me to the fire if I'm wrong. That's fine. Selling shirts on the side of the road. Yeah, I'm sure people were like, dude, you're selling clothes on the street, dude? Like, bro, that's never going to work. Well, but now everybody thinks he's so cool because he's on Shark Tank.
Well, I think too, right now, like this time and how people and how these business owners, how every one of us chooses to act and and what makes the decisions we make, this is going to be a legacy builder or breaker.
Agree.
You're going to be remembered for how you were with this. Were you the person that reached out and, helped your elderly neighbor to make sure that they didn't have to put themselves at risk? Were you the business owner who figured it out with yourself that, how you could support your employees to make sure that they were taken care of as well? And it wasn't just all about you. Were you the person that, stood up to, make sure that the people who are going into grocery stores and working, day in and day out, who are being abused by people and yelled at and treated like crap, were you one of the people that stood up for them? This is going to define a lot about us, and it's our choice where we want to stand on that.
I totally agree. And I was, like I said, at the 5 grocery stores this morning. I thanked each person as I was walking out the door, whether they had what I wanted or not. Hey, thanks for putting in your time today. I hope you know that, people do appreciate you. While they might not be showing it, because there is a lot of panic. There's a lot of fear right now. There's a lot of fear being promoted as well. And it's a lot to digest. So I think that people can take those feelings out on others. I think it's easier to take it out on others than it is to just say thank you sometimes. And so with that, thank you for supporting us. I know there's a lot more people logging on every week as we move down the road with this and as we continue to put out stuff, and especially all those guys that, we talk about and we reference. I mean, we look up to a lot of you guys, and I know that, you work with people that, we're in contact with now, and we've shared shows and stuff together, and, we need the support. So it means a lot. It's fuel for us. as visionaries and as entrepreneurs to get this thing off the ground and to make this thing as successful as it can possibly be. And it's hard. And Sky, I know you've invested a lot in yourself and in getting your businesses off the runway this year. But sooner rather than later, that runway will be behind you, and you'll be in attack formation, and this thing will be all firing pins on, man. And
No, I agree with that for sure. It's just like we talked about, we just kind of got thrown a curveball here at a more of a massive level than what most people are accustomed to, because I'll end with this. Like we kind of talked about it before, something is always going to come up. Like it might be something as global as this, or it could be something as small as if you have kids, like they're at that age where they're like, I hate you, you shouldn't do that, or blah, blah, blah. That's going to affect how you go about your day. You might be in a divorce. You might have the flu yourself. You can't work for a day. Like there's always going to be something. So what I don't want to have happen is people that do see this big pandemic or whatever the hell you want to call it, have that be something where they're like, oh man, this is so bad. Like I can't do anything about it. Like it's not worth my time and so forth. And I'm just going to sit and watch Netflix all day and stuff like that. Well, when this is over and you decide to do something, what about when you get sick? What about when you get into a fight with a family member or another coworker or something? And, you might get suspended from your job or something and eventually get fired. Like there's so many different things that can happen and will probably happen along the way. So if you're just going to use this as another excuse, then I would seriously have a sit down with yourself or other people that you're involved with and think about what it is that you're going to do about it. And then one other thing I want to end on too is we talk about, the big businesses that they're doing stuff to help people at massive scales. I wish I could do something like that. We actually talked about this yesterday. One of my goals is to be able to go to like a fundraiser down the road someday, or when there's a crisis, and be able to write a check for like $1 million, like without even thinking about it, just be like, here, this is to help you guys. But for us who cannot do that right now, something that I pride myself in doing, and if you're not doing this, you should probably do it if you care about people and you want to help people. If you see a homeless person or somebody who's on the side of the road or asking you for money and look like they're in real rough shape or something, if you have at least $1 or a quarter or something, give that to that person. Like the other day, I had no dollar bills in my wallet, and there was a guy that I've seen before on the street corner. He's had it rough around here, so I've actually talked to him several times. And every time I've seen him, I've given him at least something. Be like, hey man, Wawa's right over there. Here's another dog. Go buy another Gatorade. I know you love the orange stuff. Like starting a meaningful conversation with a guy who has it a lot worse than me. And the other day I saw him and he was coming up to me thinking that I was going to have another dollar for him. And it broke my heart because I told him, man, I don't have $1 for you today, man. And it sucks. And he's like, man, that's totally fine. Like you have helped me more than enough times. Like I could totally forgive you for this. And honestly, you just brought a smile on my face today because I saw you and I knew like this guy, he gets it, man. He gets it. So if you can change a life like that, very small, one at a time, like be that person, like do something like that. And, don't be selfish. Don't be all about yourself. Like there are people that have it worse than you. And if you can find it in your heart to do something for them, whether it's small or massive, change the way that you think about it and you'll be rewarded twofold for it for sure.
I love that, man. Kristen, any parting words with your millions of adoring fans?
Yeah, right. I think my biggest things are, don't give up. Trust me, I wanted to this week. I have had so many times that I wanted to just throw in the towel and just say, nope, I'm done. But don't give up. Don't give up. And also check on people, check on the people in your life, check on your family, check on your friends, check on, the strangers, the neighbors, the, whoever, that one smiling face, that wave right now, when we're all so isolated, it means a lot, and right now we need to band together. We need to be support and love for each other. And, I think that's the biggest way we're going to get through this.
Smile goes a long way for people, man. If you can make somebody smile, probably change their whole outlook on the day. So try to make somebody smile every day.
Absolutely. And again, thoughts and prayers. Anybody putting in the hours, grocery store clerks. I mean, I don't know. Everybody out there, healthcare workers, and anybody battling with this, virus. We personally have friends who are dealing with the situation. And so, our thoughts and our prayers are with you, and just everybody just keep pushing. And, the road less traveled will return very soon. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe on the podcast sites. And we love you. We'll see you soon.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Bye.